Welcome everyone. So in this session, we will look into how you can build high quality data products with Databricks. Although I say with Databricks, the principles and the methodologies and also the processes that we'll talk about today is applicable to building data products in any data platform. Myself, Karthik, I'm a specialist solutions architect at Databricks. I'm based out of Germany, and I have been with Databricks around more than 1.5 years now. I have a background in software engineering and architecture, focusing mainly on the big data and AI domain. I've been in the industry for more than a decade now, and currently my focus is on data architecture, security, and governance at Databricks.
Awesome. Hi everyone, my name is Pawarit. I'm currently a senior solutions architect at Databricks, where I work with our largest strategic customers on all sorts of initiatives from data warehousing to data science. And prior to that, I actually was a consumer of data products. So I was a data scientist at Airbus for a long time, trying to figure out what were the right data sets to use, how can I be sure that they're trustworthy. So that was a challenge that I really lived through. And then after that, I became more of a platform stakeholder, really producing data products at ThoughtWorks. And now I'm at now I'm at Databricks advising our customers. Okay. So for today, we'll go through a few key chapters relating to how to make sure that data products are productive and useful for companies. And this includes the topics that you see here on the slides. Karthik's gonna do a little demo for you to see how that fits into the platform. And then at the end, we'll talk about some key principles and takeaways from today. So in this session, we'll be making a few statements about features that are coming soon or features that might be in private preview today. And I just wanted to make sure that this disclaimer was out there so that you're aware that we're not specifically committing to anything in this session, but this is more directional information. All right, so let's get into it. So what are data products? So who here is familiar or has heard of data mesh? Could you raise your hands? Okay, so quite a few. And data mesh had a lot of great ideas, and a lot of companies do swear by it. But for some, they don't think that data mesh fits into their org structure quite well. However, one of the ideas from data mesh that was quite universally accepted was the concept of product thinking and data products. So let's get into the details of what that really means. So the first thing in terms of making data a product is you really need some ownership and accountability. So with data products, you really want to define an owner that understands kind of the usage and the business context around data products. Instead of being centralized around IT, you might want to have owners that are closer to the business units who know how to use these data products. Secondly, products should have life cycles. So you want to have a process for introducing, editing, and eventually retiring your products. And one other keyword that's been really hot over the past 12 months is data contracts. So I'll talk a bit more about what that really entails today. And then finally, in a lot of enterprise settings, you'll need pretty strong governance practices around your data products. So Unity Catalog, just a spoiler there, will be really, really critical. Okay, so now let's get into what are the key aspects that data products need to satisfy. The first one on the top left is discoverability. So data products aren't useful if people can't find them. So with Databricks, we really want to push for a really nice discoverability experience for end users, regardless of whether they're analysts, data scientists, or data engineers. Next, security is also really important, and this entails access controls and proper mechanisms to control access to the data lake. So Unity Catalog and Databricks, once again, comes in to simplify some of that for you. Next, at the bottom is privacy. These are more about policies like how to handle row-level filtering or column masking on PII or sensitive data. So these are things that you'll need to consider when building out your data products. The next one, that one is a bit of a mouthful, semantic consistency. And what that essentially means is how to make sure that what you say in your data product has a definition that is agreed upon in your organization so that it can be used and joined with other data products, right? So if you have different definitions on what some revenue metric might mean, then this can lead to a lot of inconsistencies. So you need to iron those out as you're building data products that will work together. And then finally, building high quality data products requires good observability, good monitoring over data quality, and over SLAs. So this is also going to be critical to your platform. Okay, so now let's talk about how to organize your teams around building data products. And in the past, we'd have these big source systems, right? Like we might have some ERP system or some CRM system. And in the past, the IT teams that knew those systems best, for example, the team that owned the CRM, would own all of the data that you then produce from that. So you can still do that today. This is kind of what we call source-aligned data products. And if those of you who are familiar with the medallion architecture in Databricks, you'll have a lot of bronze data or bronze table coming from your source systems and landing on your lake. And this might be okay for your IT teams that own those source systems to own. But as you move higher and higher in the value chain or in the stack, you're going to have to derive some data products to make them more useful. For example, you might want to combine CRM data with your ERP data to understand better like how to do perhaps demand forecasting or how to plan out your production. And this is when multiple teams and multiple departments start to need to work together now. And this is when you need to rethink ownership. So instead of going from source-aligned ownership, you might need to think more in terms of the end user now and make it more consumer-aligned. Okay? So this is more about defining ownership. Next, Karthik will talk a bit about how to manage the lifecycle of data products.
So now let's look at the typical lifecycle of a data product. We start with the inception, where you actually start with what do you want to achieve with this data product. Let's call this the business outcome. Then you assign an owner and all the resources that you need to build this. And in the design phase, what you do is you basically clarify all the details. You design something known as the data product specifications and also the data contract. And once you have this defined, then you basically have to create this data product. The data product can be a table or a view. It can also be a dashboard or a machine learning model for that matter. And once you have this developed, now the next step is to basically publish this. And for this publishing, you might have some processes, say data ops or ML ops, depending on what type of data product you're building. You define a process for that. You make sure that this data product that you create complies or is basically complies with the data contract. You do some testing and see everything works fine. And once you publish, you make sure that the right people have right access to this data product, that is basically doing the access controls, etc. On top of that comes the operation and the governance part. So this is where you actually also make sure that only the right people get access to the right data products. And whenever someone requests for a data product, you approve or decline based on the attributes, as well as basically to keep monitoring how the data product is being used, as well as the quality metrics of the data product so that it complies with the data contract again. Because in the data contract, we'll also specify what should be the data quality metrics as well. And you might also get some feedback from the customers using that. There might be some compliance changes that you need to adhere to. In that cases, you might go back to your drawing board and redesign stuff, update the design, update the data contract, and again, update all your pipelines and stuff like that. And the final step is to retire. If nobody is using your data product, or it is no more compliant with the actual compliance requirements, then you might also decide to retire the data product. As you can see, there are also different roles associated with different phases of this life cycle. So one of the key role is the product owner. The data product owner is accountable beginning from the inception phase until the retirement phase. So the accountable in the sense of the RACI matrix. Of course, there are challenges, beginning with defining what do you want to build and how do you want to build it. You might also be struggling with, okay, now I want to provide this data product, but how do I make sure that I'm providing the latest quality data? You might be thinking, how do different personas, data engineers, machine learning engineers, analysts interact in order to develop these data products? How do you publish them? How do you control access? How do you track the lineage of the data? How do you make sure to capture all the audit logs, etc., etc.? For that, basically, you can leverage most of the features that the Databricks Lakehouse provides, beginning, not all of them, because when you start with design phase, you have to keep this data contract somewhere, as well as the data product specification. This usually lives outside of the data platforms. So you might start with a Confluence page where defining the product spec, but later also store your data contract in some code repositories, because in order to have some automation on top of these data contracts, you might want to store these data contracts as a YAML file or a JSON file for that matter. So these data contract and specifications live outside of the data platform. For the creation part, what you can do is basically leverage the offerings based on, like if you're an analyst, use the DB SQL. If you are a machine learning engineer, you can use the Mosaic AI feature set, as well as for running the pipelines, you can use the orchestration services such as the Databricks workflows or the DLT. The DLT especially comes with some quality configurations that you can leverage in order to make sure that you provide the latest quality data to your consumers. Unity Catalog plays a crucial role in terms of governance and operation, as well as publishing the data, because you want to publish the data product. It can be table, it can be any arbitrary file for that matter, or a machine learning model. You can publish it to a catalog and then basically apply permissions on the catalog level or the schema level or the individual asset level. And on top of that, Unity Catalog already captures the lineage for you. It captures the audit logs. It also makes it possible to enable Lakehouse monitoring. And this Lakehouse monitoring is a feature that will provide you with all the quality insight into your data products. In the demo part, we'll also look at it a bit. So now let's look into our data contract a bit with Pawarit.
All right. So data contracts are all the rage these days. So if you look online, if you search the internet, everyone will say you need to create a bunch of YAML files and you need to do automatic enforcement of data contracts. But in reality, it's really a sliding scale on where you want to be. So really the key aspects that you need to cover with a data contract are perhaps some of these 6 topics that you see. So this is not exhaustive by any means, but for example, you're probably aware you need some good descriptions of your data, the columns, the data types. You need some idea of the quality metrics that you guarantee or that you're basically exposing to your customers. You need some ideas of SLAs, so how fresh will the data be? Security, who's allowed to access it? And then finally, this part you won't really see if you search for data products online, but in our opinion, having explanatory add-ons like notebooks or usage examples, I think are really key for a productive end user experience. Okay, so you might be wondering, how would I implement a data contract? Okay, and if you want to start really easy, Karthik mentioned you could create some kind of Confluence page on your knowledge base. You could use a data cataloging solution like Colibra or Atlan to kind of expose your data contract and these descriptions in a nice UI. But if you want to be a bit more technical and start to use data contracts in the format of YAMLs so that you can do some automatic checks or automatic enforcement, then this is one example that's been quite interesting recently. So this is the Bitol project, and they've come up with this Open Data Contract Standard, or ODCS, and they've donated this to the Linux Foundation. So there's this Linux Foundation sandbox project and a GitHub repo, which you can check out if you want to see some reference implementations. Okay? But it covers, you see, some of those same aspects that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. All right, so that was data contracts. There's a lot to learn and a lot to look up about it. The next part that we want to cover is what's called data product certification. So in large orgs, a lot of teams can produce a lot of data sets, and there can be a lot of pollution or a lot of untrusted tables and assets lying around. So how can you make sure that you know what you're using and that what you're using is trustworthy? So this is where certification comes in. And this is not just a feature or technology, it's a mixture of some technology features of Databricks, but also a process. So let's talk a bit about the process first. So in this process, what you want to do is you want essentially some kind of stamp of approval from some kind of trusted authority. So this will usually be some kind of central data governance team that has certain definitions or standards of what your data assets must have. So the process is essentially you've got your business domains producing their products. This goes through kind of an approval and feedback loop. And then after that, you can publish that and expose that in Unity Catalog. So Karthik will show you a bit in the demo about how you can use tags and how you can govern tags to satisfy this certification component. All right. So just now we talked about certification, and that sounds like a big bottleneck, right? Where everything needs to now go through this central governance team. And in reality, you really want to strike a balance between having these certified data products or having more independent data products. And to put that into practice, basically, there are certain data products where maybe only 2 or 3 teams work together on, and they know the data quite well, they trust each other. So in these scenarios, you might not want to go through that bottlenecked process. Instead, you might have some ownership or co-ownership between these 2 or 3 teams that then work together on these independent data products. Okay? But just to sum up, with certified data products, you have pretty high and strong guarantees of semantic consistency. So you can be quite sure that you're using definitions that are universally agreed upon and that you can interoperate with other data products all over the enterprise. But this is slow, right? With independent data products, it's kind of the converse, where you can really work together with your close and adjacent teams, but there's no guarantee that what you produce or what you work on will fit with the rest of the enterprise. And that's okay, it depends on the use case. Cool, I believe Karthik will tell you now about publishing and discovery.
Right, so now you have a data product and you want to publish it. So there are different options for different destinations. For instance, if you want to publish your data product to an external organization or external consumer, so to say, there are a few options. Even for external sharing, you might want to have it restricted, in which case you can go with the Databricks Marketplace or a private exchange. And with the Databricks Marketplace, you can have the request for approval process. You can also use Databricks clean rooms if you have a use case where you have a collaborative operation. That means you bring in data from 2 different organizations and you will be only able to see your data and the results and not the data set of your participating organization. If the sharing is unrestricted, you can go with the Databricks Marketplace with instant access. Other options for internal sharing is basically the Unity Catalog. And within the Unity Catalog, I'll talk about this in the next slide, like there's a new feature that is being developed for request for approval, in which case you could have a workflow to have the consumer who discovers your data product requests for access, and then the approver gets this notification and approves if everything is okay. And then if there is a use case for sharing the data product cross cloud or cross region, that is, if you are in different Unity Catalog meta stores for that matter, you can leverage private exchange. So this is the feature that I was talking about. So this feature is does not exist yet, but this is something that our product is building, and it will be in private preview soon. And with this feature, we will have the option for the consumers to apply for something that they want to use, and for the approver to get this notification and check everything and then approve or decline. When it comes to sharing the data internally, so you can leverage the Unity Catalog UI to provide details about the data product. So this is by default in the form of like the schema that you have, but you can also add these additional comments Either you can add it yourself, or you can also let the AI engine generate that for you. You can also add a comment section. You can also enhance the comment section. So this supports the basic markdown. That means you can basically customize it and add some more stuff to that. You also have the default lineage and other information, but the Unity Catalog UI is not the data contract. It just provides the necessary information for the consumer to understand what this data product is about and how to consume it to a certain extent. But if you want to have the detailed data contract, as mentioned before, it has to live outside of the data platform, and you basically link your data contract within the comment section, for instance.
Yeah, just to add to that, Unity Catalog has a bunch of open APIs that will then allow you to programmatically sync your data contracts from other systems and sync whatever attributes you can into the Unity Catalog UI for your end users.
So if you paid attention to the early keynote today, Unity Catalog is now open source. So you will have much more ease in order to get more data out of Unity Catalog. All right, so for using the Databricks Marketplace, the data contract details, you can also add it in a UI which is much more business user friendly, and basically also link the actual data contract within the description or the documentation section of the listing that you're creating. So let's get into the demo part. All right. So yeah, just before that, let me also introduce what I'm going to show. Basically, in the demo, you will see how how the consumers can discover the data product in the first place, and also how a data contract can look like, as well as how we can monitor quality of the data product. And the demo has these components. Basically, I'll show you like the data product itself. How does this look like? Where do I publish this data product? How does the data contract look like? And there are two scenarios on publishing this. So one thing is the private exchange for external organizations or also like subsidiaries, for instance. And the other scenario is where you grant permissions to internal users. So imagine you are an insurance company and you have some sort of insurance claims data, and you have derived some claim insights, and many business teams are kind of enthusiastic about this and want to use this and consume this and build some use cases on top of it. So they are requesting you for this, and you want to provide that information. As well as you have trained some machine learning model on some images about like the vehicle damage, and you have this model basically outputs what is the level of damage that this particular model, this particular image shows that the consumer has uploaded to your application. Basically, this model can be independently used for other use cases. So that's why you also want to provide this as a data product. Let's see how this looks like. I am in my Databricks workspace. So is it visible until the end? Like, should I zoom in more or all good? Okay, perfect. So I'm within my Databricks workspace. So if I go into the main page, so this is where I'm here. So I'm clicking on the Databricks Marketplace down below here. This caption thing is hiding it. Okay. So basically what you're seeing here is like the provider console. So you can only see this provider console if you have this marketplace admin privileges. So not everyone can do this. So if I go into the provider console, right? Hopefully it will load things with the live demos. All right, so I have an exchange defined here. In this exchange, if I go in, I have a listing created. Also, I have members. So these members are the consumers. So these consumers are represented by these individual entries here, the subsidiary 1 and subsidiary 2, and these are basically a specific Unity Catalog meta store. And in the listing, I go inside this, and basically I have 3 different data products listed inside this. So basically you have tables, you have models, as well as files. So the data product 1 is the table, which is the claim insights, and you can have the description here. You can also enhance this description if you feel that the consumer needs more information on this. And of course, I have linked a data contract in here. So what do I have in this data contract? Basically, this data contract is derived from the template provided by Open Data Contract Standard that Pawarit talked about. And I just define some of the attributes here. What is the name? What is the version? What is the status? Description, source platform, where did the data come from? And the dataset details itself, like the column values and stuff like that. And also, if I scroll down, you will also see that I have defined the roles, who are the potential consumers of this, or maybe I can also mandate that only these should be the consumers of this data product. There's also SLA details, etc. So you can add more or reduce depending on your organizational requirements. So this is just a starting point. You go to the Open Data Contract Standard, you can leverage the templates, you can enhance based on your requirements. And we have a data product 2, which is basically arbitrary files. I'll show you in detail in a few minutes like what actually it contains. And we also have a data product 3, which is an AI model, the model that I just mentioned, and also a notebook attached to that so that the consumer can look into how the model was trained and how they can consume it. So you have this listing as well as the data contract listed and has some details that the consumer can easily understand what this data product is about. And then basically, if I'm a consumer, so I'm going into another workspace now, which is in a different region. Now imagine that I'm the subsidiary, I want to consume the data now. I will go into the marketplace section again. Then I will look for the private exchange. So the private exchange means whenever you publish this listing, it will only be shown to the consumers who you have added as members. So not everyone will see that. So once I click on this private exchange, this should load, and my internet is slow. All right, so here it's loaded. So what I do is like I click on this, I have the details, everything. So now I do is like get instant access. I can see that I have the data set, model, and volume. I just need to accept this. And also, key thing is here's the options where you can see, okay, where do I want to use this data product? Am I consuming this on a Databricks itself? That's an option. It will just create a catalog for me and put this data products within that catalog, or I can also use it on external platforms. But at the moment, as of today, these external platforms only support tables. So that means the arbitrary file that I added here, as well as the machine learning model, cannot be consumed. In future, it might be the case, but currently it's not. So I'll just choose this Databricks. I have the catalog name. I just say get instant access. Then it will basically, behind the scenes, creates a catalog. And when I just click on open, it will open up my catalog in my workspace. And this is where you can see that, okay, you have this particular catalog, and I have a schema. Within that, I have the table, I have the volume, which contains this arbitrary file, and the machine learning model. All right, so this is how you basically share data with an external consumer. And if we go back to the slide here, so the option to share data internally, how does it actually look like? Now let me go back to my Databricks workspace, the one that I showed before. So I'll go into the catalog again. And basically, if I go into the data products, so this is an important thing. So what I did was I created a data products catalog where I want to publish all my data products. Why did I do that? So basically, what I can do here is go to this catalog, and on the permission side, I can say grant all account users browse privilege. This browse privilege will provide consumers to discover the data products. They can only see the metadata of the assets that is under this catalog, and they cannot see the actual data itself. Because the discoverability is important, unless a user can actually look for things and at least realize that something exists, it will be hard for them to request for it, right? So that's why this browse privilege can be useful. That's why I created a separate catalog and provided all account users with the browse privilege. And once they know what they want, the upcoming feature of request for access can be leveraged in order to request access for that particular data product. So that completes the cycle. All right, so inside that I have this particular schema. Inside that I have my claim insights, which is one of the data products that I want to provide to my consumers. And as you can see here, I have all the schema information with the comment section detailing it out. I have the comment section with the details of this particular data product, data contract linked in that I showed before. And data quality metrics. So these metrics have been provided in the form of tables, which is like provides you the drift metrics as well as the profile metrics. And you can leverage these tables to kind of track and monitor the quality of your data product. Remember, you can also provide this to your consumers so that they can also monitor the data quality and also make sure that it sticks to the contract. And in addition, we have a data monitoring dashboard as well. So if I open this, so this is loading. So basically, I also have it open in here. You can also look into in a visualized manner and track the quality of your data products. So this is basically created using the lakehouse monitoring, which I can do that on the quality tab of this particular data product. So this is quite easy. So you just couple of click of buttons and some configurations, you have your monitoring ready for your data product. In addition, of course, like the Unity Catalog comes with this privilege thing, so you can also grant permissions to specific groups or service principals or users based on what is allowed, and as well as you can track the lineage with the inbuilt lineage option from the Unity Catalog. So you can go back until up the source, as well as you have column lineage. So you can even track the lineage on the column level with Unity Catalog. All right, so the last thing that I wanted to show, or not the last thing, last but one. So we have the arbitrary data files. So assume that there are consumers who want to just use an Excel file. I don't want to use some sophisticated tables. I'm a simple business user. I want to use Excel. So you can also provide these simple arbitrary files with volumes. And this volume, for instance, I have this Excel file here provided inside the volumes. I have the same details here, data contract linked, etc. So basically a simple way to share even the arbitrary files. This can also be JSON, MP3, you name it. And the machine learning model. So in the machine learning model as well, I have the details. I have the data contract linked, which lives also in the GitHub repository. And if I go into the version, so this also has this inbuilt versioning, as you already know that. And as well as like you can link some of the notebooks and the metadata details of this particular model within your description itself. For instance, I have provided some batch scoring notebook so that the consumer comes in and says, okay, here's a model, this is what it does, but how do I consume it? So I have a notebook which is attached to that, which shows them how to actually write the code and have some examples. The consumer is really happy. And this is the power of providing more information along with the data product so that the consumers can easily consume it. And the thing that Pawarit mentioned, okay, you have the YAML files. Why do you need that YAML file basically on a GitHub repository when you have all this information? That is for automatically enforcing rules. For instance, if you have an ETL pipeline that updates this data products, you want to make sure that this sticks to the contract that you have provided. It does not break the contract, because if you break it, all the downstream systems will be affected. So if you have this YAML file or a JSON file in here, machine readable way, the data contract is consumable from automatic processes, and they can validate this before writing or updating the data product. So that is one thing. So enforcing the data contract is one option, as well as on the consumer side, they can also do the same thing, like validate the data product against data contract so that they know that they are consuming the right data product. So that is for like automation is one part, as well as like easy readability and also easy consumption is the other part of the data contract, which is more or less satisfied by the UI itself. And the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about, the tags, which is basically, I have a data product here, which is, for example, consumer data, and this consumer data has PII information with that. How do you deal with this data classification, right? So you can leverage tags for that. For instance, here I have marked all the columns that are of sensitive in nature as PII, and also I have marked the table as category strictly confidential. And these tags can be also leveraged while automating stuff within your organization, and also make sure that the downstream systems that is reading data from the Unity Catalog does not read the confidential data, or also skip or mask or encrypt the PII information that is being used. So all these things will help you simplify operations as well as stick to the compliance standards. All right, so that was the demo part, and we get back to the slides and go into the interoperability with Pawarit.
Cool. Just let me do a quick time check. Okay, we have a little bit of time. So I'll just want to spend probably 1 minute going back to that demo. Speaking from experience as a data scientist, I think having this monitoring done by Lakehouse Monitoring is very powerful. It's more than a dashboard, actually. There's a lot of automated scheduling and alerts that you can build using this. You can also customize it to bring in your own domain-specific metrics in terms of data quality or in terms of model drift. So it's a feature that data scientists and people who are concerned about data quality should really take advantage of. And that's coming to GA, I believe, at the end of this week. All right, so back to the slides. Cool. Let's talk a bit about interoperability. So I'm sure most of you have heard about some of the key acquisitions we've made recently, and I'll talk a bit about that in a few slides. But the reason why we've made some of these key strategic moves is because we realize that in very large enterprises, data products exist in all sorts of platforms, not just Databricks. So there's a major challenge here about how to get different data products to coexist and work with each other. And then the second challenge is, how do we satisfy different consumption modes? It's becoming increasingly untenable to just consume data products via JDBC. As data is getting bigger, as you need more efficient ways to consume new data, you need to think about things like exposing REST APIs or streams that are more tailored to each use case. Okay? So with the first challenge, how to get different data products on different platforms to work together, this is where Unity Catalog's Lakehouse Federation feature comes in. So now if you have data products sitting in other data stores, whether it be Snowflake, Redshift, etc., what you can do is you can federate those schemas from those external data stores into Unity Catalog, and there you can govern everything from a central pane. And a lot of my biggest customers have really benefited from this because it really simplifies governance, and it allows people to do really meaningful and useful joins between data sitting on a lake with data sitting on Snowflake or Postgres, for example. Okay? And then after that, once you've got things on Databricks, you'll see that we have some pretty neat REST APIs, like the Databricks SQL Databricks SQL Statement Execution REST API. That's a mouthful. That really helps make a lot of data products easy to expose. Okay, and there's a second aspect to interoperability, which is now that we see that lakehouse formats are becoming super popular, everyone's kind of standardizing on Delta Lake or Iceberg, for example. Now we need to make sure that all of these different engines for the lakehouse formats can interoperate with each other. So this was a key reason why we acquired Tabular, which is to really expand and enhance the Uniform project, which makes Delta Lake and Iceberg and soon Hoodie all much more interoperable. And this is really key to having data products that work smoothly and seamlessly in your org. Okay? All right, so 2 minutes left. So the takeaways from today is you really want to think consumer first. A lot of you might be in your central IT platforms of your orgs, but today we talked a bit about ownership, and we really want to make ownership closer and closer to the end users and the business. So you want to take advantage of any features that you can of the platform as well to enhance that consumer experience, whether it be discoverability or whether it be quality monitoring, for example. So that second bullet point speaks to that. We really want to prevent quality issues from happening in the first place. So using tools like Delta Live tables can help you control for that. And then having lakehouse monitoring is a second layer of protection to make sure you stay on top of data quality. And finally, the last aspect can't be understated. So making sure that data is well governed, making sure that you have tags to identify what attributes are important or which data sets are certified are going to be really important as your data estate and your data sprawl starts to grow. Okay? There's a final feature that we didn't go into, but it's called system tables that you should definitely look up. So in Databricks and in Unity Catalog, a lot of the key governance features around auditability, lineage, etc., are really going to be stored in system tables. So you should definitely leverage those. Okay? So Karthik and I would really like to thank you for sticking with us. Data governance can be quite a dry topic, but hopefully you got some nice takeaways. We'd love to know what you think, so please don't hesitate to come and speak to us after the session. Join us for some of these events at the Learning Hub, and definitely check out what other events we have in store for the week. So thanks very much for coming.